All right, so I just had Carl Allen on the show, and wow, what an awesome show. If you want to talk about buying small businesses in today's age with all the opportunities presenting itself out there and going to present itself, this is a must listen. So Carl is a world-class entrepreneur, investor, and corporate deal maker who's worked on more than 330 transactions worth close to 48 billion. Yes, 48 billion. Nearly a 30-year career that he's analyzed thousands of big businesses and small businesses in 17 different countries. So we're not just talking, he's over in Manchester, England. So we're not just talking basically everything here just in the US. He'll be able to talk to you on all different levels, no matter where you reside. We talked on a lot today, really the type of assets he's looking for, the spaces, the three spaces he's really diving into, the three types of businesses that are out there, and the number one reason businesses are no longer in existence. So on that fact, tune in here. It's going to be a ton for you to look at, a ton for you to dive into. Enjoy the show. All right, so we are here. Hey, Carl, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show all the way from Manchester, England. So you are my first person from, actually my second in England, my first from Manchester. So I'm super excited to have you on the show. And what a dynamic topic we're going to focus on today, buying and selling of small businesses. And really, you said offline that right now is going to be the biggest buyer's pool or arena that potentially we've seen in 75 years. So just before we dive into that, I want to know what really drew you to this, because over 330 transactions worth close to $48 billion. I mean, there's some work there for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some effort going on.
There is. So actually, I've been a deal maker for 28 years. 28 years and 2 weeks. I started my deal making career way back in 1992. So I went to work for a Wall Street investment bank. So I was doing mergers and acquisitions for large corporates like GE, IBM, Microsoft, Boeing, etc. And then, so I did that for a number of years, and then I ended up working in corporate mergers and acquisitions. So after my MBA and a little stint in private equity, I was one of the guys at Hewlett-Packard buying up businesses. So I did that for a number of years. And then 2008, my life completely changed on a dime. I was in Moscow closing a deal, and my wife went into labor 4 weeks early. So I had to get myself back to the UK at short notice. My little guy was born 5 minutes later, and I'm cradling him in my arms. And I decided I was going to quit. I didn't want to work for anybody else anymore. So I retired. I retired at 37, lasted 3 weeks. Decided I needed to get back in the game. I was financially free, but wanted something to stimulate me. So I decided to become a business broker, which is an agent for buying and selling small businesses. Instead of brokering a deal, I ended up acquiring the business I was hired to sell. I bought it myself using other people's money. And then that set me off on a journey, which I'm still doing today, of buying, growing, and then selling small businesses. So that I spent half of my time doing that. I'm a partner in an investment firm in the US that does all that stuff. And then the other half of my time is I'm coaching and mentoring 5,500 people who want to do what I do, want to learn how to find and buy businesses using other people's money, how to then grow them and sell them. So that's those are my two jobs.
Yeah, I love that. How do you work with so many people? 5,500. That's a lot of people to be able to talk to or to get the message across. What are some tactics that you use to really just bring your message truly to them?
Yeah, so we have a whole portfolio of different training programs. So we have an entry-level program called the Dealmaker CEO, which is a kind of do-it-yourself online training system where you follow along. It's got all the tools and the techniques and the templates and things that you need. And most of our students go through that and do deals. And then we have higher level programs. We have like our Dealmakers Academy, where we're group coaching them on a week-to-week basis. And then we also have a partner program where our very best students, once they've done deals, we partner with them, and we'll close subsequent deals, with them and those businesses together. So lots of different ways that we can touch and energize our basic students. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, so doing that, what is the keys to identifying value? Whether it's so on the buying side, do you deal in just specific spaces, or it's just I find the opportunity, and no matter what space it's in, and I look at the opportunity, not so much the space?
Yeah, so the golden rule for somebody that wants to buy a business is, especially for your first deal, is really stay in your lane. So buy a business in a sector that that you understand, that you can add value to the business once you've acquired it, and you've probably got a network that you can plug in to that business as well. So for example, if you're a web designer, say, and you're working for somebody else, then go buy a web design firm or go buy an IT services company. Don't go buy a 7-Eleven or a gas station or a laundromat or a hotel or an engineering business. Buy something that you're passionate about, that you understand, because then it's a lot easier to build a relationship with a seller. It's a lot easier to raise financing to buy a business like that if you've got the chops, if you've got the knowledge and the know-how from that industry. And if you're really passionate about an industry, but you don't have any skills inside of it, then just go partner with somebody. So one of my students, he's really into wine. He's a wine connoisseur, and his dream was to always own a vineyard. He's a sales guy for IBM, so he knows nothing about the wine industry. He knows technology and selling. And I said to him, dude, I really admire your passion for the wine industry, but you're crazy if you think you can buy a wine business and operate it as successfully as the person that's selling it. Just go and find somebody that knows how to do that. You do the deal, you work on the strategy, let that person run for you, and then just own it together. And that's what he's doing. So I think golden rule number one is really just stay in your lane. Once you've done a bunch of deals like me, then you can buy in pretty much any sector. The only sectors I tend to avoid, I don't like B2C businesses. So I don't like businesses that where consumers are the customer. I like deals that are business to business because they're a lot easier to finance and they're a lot easier to scale, and also they're a lot easier to sell. And I don't like Amazon businesses. Like there's a lot of people out there actually that coach how to buy and sell Amazon businesses.
Yeah, I see it everywhere. Yeah.
Nothing against Amazon businesses. I trade with lots of them to buy stuff, especially right now when the shops were closed, the retail was closed. But for me, the big challenge with an Amazon business is you don't necessarily own the customer. So Amazon owns the customer. It's hard to do remarketing, and you get one bad review, or Amazon decides to move directly into your space, your business is finished. So I tend to stay away from those types of businesses, but pretty much anything else, I'm game for. So technology, engineering, construction, manufacturing, retail, B2B, definitely into those types of businesses. Transportation, what an industry to be in right now with all the surge of products and services moving around through the lockdowns. It's crazy. So there's tons of deals out there. There's over 2.4 million businesses for sale right now in the United States.
Just in the US.
Yeah, and only 1 in 11 will sell in the next 12 months. And two reasons for that. Number one, there's a big lack of buyers that really know how to do deals, and secondly, have access to the financing to be able to close a deal. Because a lot of people think wrongly that if you want to buy a business that's worth $1 million, you've actually got to go and cut a $1 million check. You don't. You can buy that business in some cases without spending anything of your own. You can use other people's money. You can use the seller's money. You can finance the business. You can use the cash in the business. You can get investors.
Who's typically financing these businesses?
So there's three ways to finance a deal. The first way is you just pay the seller over time. It's called seller financing. So it's like the lease to buy model. So let's say you find a business, it's worth $1 million, it's generating $300,000-$400,000 a year of cash flow, and the seller just wants to leave. They're sick, they're bored, they're frustrated, you know, they're done, they want to retire. Just buy their business and just pay them over time. Use the cash flow that the business generates. Some of that you take for yourself, some of that you use to pay back the seller. That doesn't happen that often. I would say only 1 in 10 times you can do that. What's more common is you split the purchase up between a closing payment, so what you give the seller the day you take over the business, and then you pay another chunk of that over time, whether it's monthly, quarterly, annually, for however long you negotiate. And then that closing payment, that can come from, you can go to the SBA. So the SBA 7A loan program will give you up to 90% of the purchase price of a business, and you can pay that back over 10 to 15 years. So that's a good source. You can use traditional asset-based financing. So you can finance things like real estate, you can finance plant and equipment, you can finance receivables, you can even finance inventory. You offer all that up to a bank, like a JP Morgan or a Chase or even a Live Oak, and they will pledge you a sum of money to allow you to buy the business. They take the assets as security, and then you just pay that money back over time. Or in some cases, you might need to go and raise like micro private equity. So you go and find a partner that will put cash into the deal, and as a result, they want to take a minority stake, a minority percentage of the ownership. And sometimes entrepreneurs think, well, I don't want that. You know, I don't want to share the ownership of my business, which is crazy because let's say you did that and you give away 20% of the company. It's better to own 80% of a business than 100% of nothing. But then also that investor, that partner that you bring into your deal, they potentially can add massive value to the business once you've bought it. They might have a network they can plug in for business development. They might have a skill set that is missing inside of your business. Your business might not be large enough to have, say, a CFO, and your angel investor that gives you the money could have been a vice president at Goldman Sachs and knows everything about financing and can kind of be your quasi part-time CFO and really add tremendous value to the business that you buy. So the whole key to this is creativity. You know, there's 1,000,001 ways to finance deals and structure deals. What's even more important though is your ability to go out and build relationships. So it's building relationships with sellers, and it's what I call the know, like, and trust formula. It's the same in direct response marketing. For people to do business with you, they need to get to know you, they need to get to like you, and they need to get to trust you. And it's the same in deal making. The more time and effort you put into building those relationships, the easier it is to close deals. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and so looking at just all the opportunities that have surfaced, in a weird way, right? Because right now the rug has been pulled out from people that potentially were just doing everything fine with their business and they're not going to sustain moving forward. So how has your philosophy for, if it has, changed with coronavirus, and how are you looking at opportunity? I was interested to hear you say or mention retail as one of the spaces you're looking at today with what's happening there. But how are you identifying opportunity today? And I guess the backup question or follow-up question is, what is the proper process one should look at to value a business?
Yeah, so valuing a business is it's one of the oldest questions in this industry. So valuation really comes down to the tipping point between what somebody's prepared to pay to buy a business versus what the seller's prepared to take to sell it. In the stock market, it's really easy because the market sets that price. If you wanted to buy Amazon right now, it's going to cost you a little over $1.5 trillion. You know, every business is for sale. It's just a question of how much. In our sector, so we're really focusing on deals with revenues between, say, 1 and 10 million US dollars. So that's kind of our sweet spot. That's where we're focusing. And
so top line revenues, 1 to 10 million.
Top line revenues, we're really looking at deals in the $1 to $10 million revenue range, and we're looking at deals with, between a 10 and 20% kind of profit margin. We don't buy businesses that aren't making money, and we don't want to buy businesses that are truly world class, because they're gonna command a lot of attention, premium prices, and we don't bother with those. So we're looking for good businesses. We're not looking for great businesses, and we're not looking for damaged businesses. We're looking for good businesses. We can make great businesses. And what's more important than valuation in those types of deals? It's a lot more focused on psychology. And one of the big drivers of the selling process, one of the big drivers of the number of sellers right now, is baby boomers. So there's 10,000 baby boomers retiring every single day in the United States, according to the Wall Street Journal. And 19% of them own small businesses. So you've got 1,900 businesses every single day, 365 days a year, coming to market. So you've got all these businesses, and a lot of these sellers, they've been in their businesses 20, 30, sometimes even 40 years. They've spent more time in their businesses than they have with their own family. So they really care about who takes the business on. And sometimes they don't want a competitor to kind of gobble them up and destroy what is a phenomenal legacy that they built. Their brand, their culture, their legacy, the safeguarding of their employees. That's really important to a lot of sellers. So they would happily do a deal with an individual who they would see as a safe, trusted pair of hands that knows the industry, can add a lot of value to it, and can really protect and cherish the business that they've built and take it to a whole different level. And when you find that type of seller, then deal structure becomes a lot more important than valuation. Sellers always think their businesses are worth a lot more than they are. All mamas love their babies, right? As ugly or as beautiful as they are. So sometimes you can give the seller the price he or she wants for the business. You just structure it in a certain way. So you can just pay for the business over a long period of time. You can include things called earnouts, which are like bonus payments that get triggered if and when a business hits really outstanding financial performance, but like how salespeople work in organizations. So there's always ways to kind of bridge the valuation gap by being really creative in terms of a deal structure. And what we're trying to do all the times is really kind of balance that risk. We want to put as much risk back onto the seller as possible and have as much of the deal as we can kind of in those future time payments. Back to COVID, which is where you kind of started the question. We're in a really interesting kind of time right now. And what's really awesome is outside of, the hospitality industry per se, and, a lot of kind of retail, most businesses that I either own or I have access to or I've seen in the market have not only survived, a lot of them have really thrived through COVID. And we've seen a lot of changes over the last 5 months, a lot of changes in consumer behavior. Like a lot more stuff's gravitated now to moving online. I've seen a lot of businesses, pivot in phenomenal ways into different emerging sectors. So I'll give you an example. Really good friend of mine owns a manufacturing company, and he manufactures, or he manufactured components for performance motorbikes. So his clients were, BMW, Harley Davidson, Honda, and he calls me about a week after that. So we got locked down in the UK towards the end of March. So he calls me a week later, and he's like, dude, what do I do? All, my 3 biggest clients have just called me and said, hey, we're not going to be placing any orders for the next 6 months. We're not going to be building any more motorbikes. And he's like, what do I do? I've got his employees. I've got to pay my rent. I've got to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I said to him, how quickly, Brian, can you retool your factory to make medical components? He said, well, 24 hours, because it's the same equipment. I just got to change the settings. I said, we'll do that. I said, because one of the biggest growth markets we're going to see in the next 12 to 18 months is medical devices. There's all this news on the media that, countries running out of ventilators and all these different things. So he pivoted. He's now generating 4x the revenue making parts for ventilators than he was making parts for motorbikes.
It was a nice stake for that one.
Yeah, he's got 5-10-year contracts to make these things. And now Honda called in last week and said, hey dude, we're back on, we want to make some components. He's like, nah, not in that business anymore. I'm killing it making ventilator parts. So, and I've seen the same thing. I own friends that are in retail and have pivoted from selling in a store to converting their store into a fulfillment center and going online and killing it, making 2 to 3x their revenues. And when stores were allowed to open about a month ago, they said, why would we? We don't have the space now. Our entire store's just a warehouse.
Wow.
We're really kind of busy fulfilling all the online orders. So I think we've seen all this changing in consumer behavior and all these different kind of demands on business and all these different business models that are emerging. And what I'm seeing in the market is kind of 3 types of seller or 3 types of business. Businesses that have pivoted and are now really killing it and doing something really, really new, like the retailers selling online, or the...
I'll give you one example. We had Greg Shea, a friend of mine on the show. He has Pens of America, which is their family company. It's been over 100-year company making basically pens, and they transitioned to making masks. And now they were able to bring all their employees back and everything else because nobody was ordering promotional pens right now. And they're right down the street in transition and doing great. So yeah, right in that line.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like even Burberry, which is one of the premier UK designer clothing brands, they've switched their business model into making PPE. So they're making gowns for the health service. So you've got one camp of businesses that are pivoted and are thriving because they've picked up on trends into how the world has really changed over the last few months. Then you've kind of got the middle ground of businesses that they're just the staple businesses. So whether it's transportation or whether it's people that were online generally or restaurants that always did, kind of delivery service and so on. Those businesses that whether you're in a pandemic or you're not are still going to do the same as what they were. But then what you've got is you've got a third camp of business that hasn't really suffered that much through the pandemic, but it's I don't know if you use this phrase in the US, but it's what we call the straw that broke the camel's back. So these are business owners that went through the aftermath of 9/11. They went through the aftermath of the global financial crisis. They've been through countless other recessions and have been through loads of other challenges in business and in life. And this is like, you know what? I am done. I just want to sell my business now. I want to retire. I have a good business. I've made some money. Let somebody else figure all this stuff out. I don't want to pivot. I don't want to think outside the box. I want to let somebody else do it. So, and there's millions of these businesses. And what's interesting is it's simple economics of supply and demand. You've got the same number of buyers out there, but now you've got an exponential growing list of sellers. So all it's doing is it's driving down valuations. The average small business in the US sells for less than 3 times free cash flow. It's about 2.6 times. And that's going to come down even more. And if you think about it, if you look at the seller, if they can't find a buyer for their business, then what other options have they got? They've either got to stay in there and keep running it, which if they're looking to retire or they're burnt out, frustrated, sick, ill, even dying in some cases, sadly, what other options have they got? And do you know what the number one exit strategy is for most small businesses in the US? Do you know what it is?
Close down. Close
the doors, turn off the lights. 595,000, I think, just under 600,000 businesses last year in 2019 closed the doors because they couldn't find anybody to buy their business. Whereas if you'd have walked up to that business owner and said, look, you've got a business, you want $1 million for it, that's fine. It's generating $400,000 of cash flow. I'll pay you $200,000 a year for the next 5 years. So I'll buy the business, I'll take 200 a year, you take 200 a year. It means you still get paid, but you don't have to go into the business anymore. They'd have snapped your hands off. But people, they don't know how to do that. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so active in coaching and mentoring students to be able to do this, to give them the confidence, the mindset, the skills and the tools, and really the kind of the art and science around, you know, how to find businesses to buy, how to structure deals, how to build relationships, how to raise the financing to close them, and then how to hire a CPA and a lawyer to actually take care of all the paperwork and physically close the deal for you. So that's really my mission. That's what I'm trying to do in this role.
So if there was one space that you're most bullish about today, and then I want to be respectful of your time here, we'll let you go here, but if there's one space that you could give some insight to someone who's just saying, you know, there's so much noise out there, your 600,000 businesses last year just closed, and it's probably going to be massively accelerated this year, I would assume, right, when we come in there. Is there one space that would be a B2B business that you're fully engaged watching opportunities in?
Yeah, so for me, it would have to be the transportation and logistics sector. You know, that for me is an industry. I've owned businesses in that space. I wish I still did. I sold them. All those businesses, whether they're good or bad or indifferent, are thriving right now. Those are great businesses, you know, to own, because as I mentioned earlier, I think we've seen a phenomenal shift in the past 5 months about people's buying behavior. You know, this is why Amazon's market cap's doubled in the last 12 months. You know, it's now driving $34 billion a year in earnings. It's crazy. Everyone's pivoting to online, even though the stores are open now. We're just used to buying things online. You know, why
I heard Bezos' net worth went up $13 billion just yesterday, highest on record. Yeah,
I know it's crazy, isn't it? And it's like Amazon, for example. Like I will never go to a clothes store to buy clothes. I can go on Amazon Wardrobe. If there's a shirt I like or a pair of shoes, I can order it in 3 different sizes. It arrives latest the next day. I try them on and I send back the ones I don't want. It's amazing. You know, there's so much convenience and flexibility now with how we buy stuff. And I think the transportation industry, whether it's the hauliers or the people that do the last mile, that's a killer sector. I think engineering as well. You know, people that can pivot into these new emerging medical supply chains is another really awesome sector that I'm looking at. And then the third sector that really excites me right now is the whole online education space, because again, like even Harvard Business School have said, you know, everything's going to go virtual. So why would you spend 200 grand on an MBA from Harvard when you can buy a la carte training and other online education services? So, you know, and that in and of itself is a $180 billion industry. So those are my 3 kind of killer sectors that I'm looking for deals.
Yeah, that's amazing. And online education, ourselves, we 3 little kids, I have no idea when they're going back, right? So, and at that point, you know, are we going to be the first ones to just put them back in there if there's not certainty, right? So looking at that platform has been highly dynamic, just understanding for sure. Carl, this has been truly interesting. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. For everyone here, we have dealmakerwealthsociety.com. Is there anywhere else they should be checking you out here that you suggest that you can find? It's Dealmaker Wealth Society, Dealmaker Wealth on all social platforms as well. Anywhere else?
We've actually got some free training as well. So for people that are curious about buying businesses, how does it work? What are the steps involved? We've put together some free training. If they go to trainwithcarl.com, they can access that free training, go through it, and then If that's a real interest to people and they think, yeah, I can do this, I've got some ideas on businesses I would buy, then we have a whole range of different coaching programs that people can subscribe to depending on their level of interest and their budget. But I think for everybody, start with the free training and see whether this is something that that you'd like to do.
Yeah, I love it. Carl, thank you so much. Super appreciate your time. Absolutely incredible stuff.
Thank you.
All right. So everyone listening, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in here. I got a ton of value out of this. I'm sure you did too. Check out Carl's training. Check out what he's doing, because 330 transactions, 48 billion. He's been doing something, and you can learn a lot from just following the steps here and just learning from others that are doing it at such a high level. Appreciate your time. Bye now.
Join us for your second cup of coffee every Monday through Friday at noon.
Live every day, bringing us our best content we've done so far. Super excited, super engaging, bunch of great guests. We're here to answer your questions, and we so appreciate you listening. Make sure to check this out.
Can't wait to see you.